The button has been pressed. Hello, haters. Today we have a special guest. I believe that it's not necessary to leave the house when you have interesting people around you. So one of such interesting people happens to live in the same house with me. And we are right now in Switzerland. And Tharsan, do you want to introduce yourself to my haters audience?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, hello everybody. I'm 29 years old and I grew up in Schaffhausen, which is the northern part of Switzerland. I was there when I was 4. And pretty much I feel Swiss, Sri Lankan, yeah.
So Swiss, you're saying Swiss and at the same time you're saying Sri Lankan. Can you tell me about, so originally where do you come from?
Exactly, I was growing up from Sri Lankan parents. I was born in Bahrain, which is in a country in the Middle East, but my parents are ethnically Sri Lankan. They grew up and born their entire life there. Then from 4 I was growing up in Switzerland. So my ethnically nationality is Sri Lankan, but I grown up with the values of Switzerland.
I always found it fascinating how sometimes people mix two different identities. Like, I cannot speak for myself, I'm Russian, so I lived most of my life in Russia and then I started living in Europe. For you it's a bit different because you feel Swiss, yet part of you feels Sri Lankan. How do these two personalities blend in you?
It was kind of an identical problem, which is Sri Lankan has I'm coming from the ethnical part Tamils, which we have a totally different cultural way to growing up. It was a kind of exploration thing. I think even I'm glad I was with 4 in Switzerland. I think if it would be older, like even if it's with 5, 6, 7, I will be much have troubles, but I'm very, very glad to growing up in that way.
But as a kid, did you ever go through racism in Switzerland?
Well, yeah, it is like that is something which was very, very difficult when I can remember. Obviously, I have a darker skin, which is first reason, which is not very typical Swiss. I was growing up in a very conservative area, which is very much kept to save the Swiss values. It wasn't very easy all the time for me, but I had this, you building up a strong personality to be confident, and sometimes it makes it easier, sometimes it's harder. Yeah, it was a kind of a topic.
Sri Lankan community here in Switzerland. Do you know a lot of people from Sri Lanka who moved to live here like you? Do you keep in touch with them?
I do. I even had yesterday a phone call with my 2 best friends, which I grew up with them. They are two girls, we are in the same age, and even one of them is marrying next year a Swiss guy, which is in our culture very, very not obvious. And when I was 4, my parents, for them was very important to keep the Sri Lankan culture. That means our tradition. I was growing up in the Hinduism religion, which I'm not practicing anymore, and for them was very important that I go to the Tamil school, which every Wednesday afternoon you have to go, which in Switzerland every kid has Wednesday afternoon off. You had to go to the Sri Lankan to the Tamil school, which I was very happy now, because in Tamil you can speak in Singapore, in South India, and even in Sri Lanka, which was I was very, very thankful to my parents that I can speak and read and write this language.
Religion, what I read, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Hinduism, Buddhism and Muslim. So what does it depend on? Which religion would you be practicing if you're coming from Sri Lanka?
Actually, this is a very good question, which is sometimes I'm not very sure about it. The Tamils, most of them are Hinduism. Also, there are some Catholic Christian religions. They are in the northern part of Sri Lanka. Most of the country, Sri Lanka, is held with Sinhalese people, which they are. Most of them are Buddhism. And then there are a little minority, they are having a Muslim community. They speak Tamil as a language, but if you ask them what's your ethnicity, they call themselves, we are Muslims. So they define themselves with a religion, which I find sometimes very interesting. So are they Tamils or are they Muslims? Like they are actually Tamil speakers from the native, but they belong to a own group. They are Tamils, but they follow the Muslim religion. which has a strong community in Colombo, in the capital of Sri Lanka.
Last year we actually had an experience. I was lucky to travel to Sri Lanka with the local, and I always thought that you're supposed to say Sri Lanka because that's how you say it in English, but luckily you told me that it's Sri Lanka, that's the correct word.
Exactly,
so we're safe saying that. When we traveled there together, I was really like amazed by how warm people are, how nice they are. How is it for you every time you go there? Do you ever feel like, do people understand that you don't live there, or is it unclear for them? How do you feel treated when you go there?
First of all, there was a war about the ethnicity, because Sri Lankan, the Tamils and Sinhalese, they didn't live congruent all the time. If I go back there, of course they see how I walk, how I talk, how I wear my clothes. They see me with different eyes, which was sometimes, as you experienced, difficult when we went to some museums or to public places. I had to pay the foreign amount, which was, I felt a bit unfair. Even I used to have a dual nationality, that's true. Well, it's actually fair because I'm a Swiss nationality. But it's also very interesting, those people, they say, who wanted to fight for this country, wanted to serve for their country. They say, you know, today the winner are the people who flew to the foreign countries because they are now rich, they can afford something to come back. They are the winner, and we are still here. The economy still is bad in Sri Lanka, and they have to, they wanted to fight and build Sri Lanka in a better way. And now the foreigners, they come, they feel like they are tourists, but they used to be a part of them.
The civil war is something that's the hardest, I think. Well, not the hardest, but sometimes it can be tricky for the country to come back from that. And when did it happen in Sri Lanka? Not that long ago, right? When the whole conflict was happening.
Exactly, it was 1989 was started, and my parents, they come to Switzerland in 1994. Like, it was 4 years, so you can calculate. I'm 29, and yeah, it was actually 29 years ago approximately was the difficult time in Sri Lanka. And even they had afterwards some bomb splashes. The country was never very safe. Even last year there was a bomb attack in Sri Lanka, or 2 years ago.
Very, very sad. I remember that. You do feel as a foreigner when you're in Sri Lanka, but then obviously do you feel that in Switzerland as well? Even you were raised in Switzerland, do you also feel that sometimes, like this identity crisis?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had some kind of this thing. Even you try to feel so Swiss as possible. They see you in different eyes. Like they try to speak you in High German, which is not Swiss German. They think you are a foreigner and you come. But in most of the places you're accepted, but they keep challenging you. Always when I get into the train and I have a Swiss nationality, they looked at me and I don't know if it's my skin color or my behavior, I don't know why, I used to get controlled all the time. That was something annoying, but today we are friends. They know me. They even talk to me, and it's funny. Yeah.
No, but it's sad. Honestly, like it happens to my other friends as well, and it's like, well, because I'm white, I'm not being checked. That's so unfair, and that shouldn't be happening. But you know what I noticed, like on the positive note, when we were in Sri Lanka, going back to that amazing trip once again, that you were really speaking to everyone, and you had such long, engaging conversations. And for example, like we had a driver. I think he told us a story that he was 40 years old, but his first child was born when he was 16.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's like crazy to think about. But you talk to anyone, whether it was like Sinhalese, Tamil person, so it means that nowadays probably people have overcome that conflict and it has been eased, right? Or how does it feel?
I think for us, for the younger generation, I think definitely. I think they want to be back a part of the united country, being Sri Lankan, proudly Sri Lankan, because this country, we call it actually in our internal terms, you say it's the pearl in the Indian Ocean. It's a beautiful country with, as you saw, the nature is beautiful. To unify them and being together, it's very important. I'm very interested in people, especially interested in languages, and I wanted to see the fascinating thing, two community living so each other so nearby, and they cannot understand each other because Sinhalese sounds so totally different than Tamil.
Completely different.
Completely different.
I didn't know that.
I think you can understand the Belarus, like the
Belarus, for example, or like Ukrainian, a little bit. So Tamil and Sinhalese, no.
It's completely different. It's like German and French. English.
Okay. Yeah.
And I find this fascinating. They live on the same island, but they cannot communicate each other. Of course, there are people, they study Sinhalese, and Sinhalese people, they study Tamil. So when I'm traveling all around the world, even people most of the time think I'm Indian, but we can find if someone is Sri Lankan. That I find some like all the fascinating.
Oh.
It's the way they look, and also the contours, the face, the color tones, and even it's Sinhalese or Tamil, we can't find them. All right, they must be from the same country, but we cannot communicate. So I try to talk with them as much as possible, and how they see the situation when since few years all the tourists are coming to Sri Lanka.
So they can say that you're Tamil. They would approach you, or they wouldn't.
They do, but that's a special thing because I'm much darker. I'm the darkest in the family. My family members are much whiter, or like less dark, because they protect themselves from the sun. I don't care. I like the sun.
Did you ever think about what would your life be if you like imagining living in Sri Lanka, not leaving Sri Lanka? Now you could be, I don't know, a completely different person. Does that ever cross your mind?
Yes. I don't know how would my life look like if I would be in Sri Lanka with my uncles and grandparents and my relatives there. I really don't know if I have this kind of opportunity.
Yeah, life can be very tricky sometimes. You don't know what leads you to become who you are. Because for me, it's also like when I lived in Russia, I had my life, and just imagining now, what if I stayed living in Russia? I would have never traveled to Europe, never traveled somewhere abroad, never met you. I don't know, like all those, you know, like a butterfly effect, I think it's called. Swiss people, they give me an impression that they're much more reserved. And you are very warm, very sunny. I love your personality. You're very like, you know, bright person. Does that ever cause some sort of conflict for you, like conflict of identity, that like Swiss people are still somehow different or not?
Yes, actually we in our cultural effect in Sri Lankan, we have this, we talk a lot with the hands, or we have this lot of non-verbal things when we talk or look like the person. And I'm a very extrovert person. I love to talk, and the most of the Swiss people, the majority, they are more introvert or they are reserved. But also I would say I have a lot of Swiss friends who are very open-minded and very...
No, it's not to say they're not open-minded. I think it's more like about cultural thing. I'm sure there are lots of Swiss extroverts, but culturally you don't just, I don't know, approach a person. And I like that warm approach.
Yeah.
And if you like someone, you just come to them and you tell them. But sometimes it's like, I feel like in Swiss culture it's a bit different. So
yeah,
it could create certain situations.
It had actually a lot, and it is sometimes a challenge which you have to keep to say them. Yeah, it is come from my culture that I'm very open and directly, but I ask myself, would that be if I would grow up in a different country which people are different than that, or is it like just my personality? So I actually really don't know, it is my real personality or it's my Sri Lankan thing, or is it just me how I am?
It's maybe like a blend of experiences, like all the things you went
Could
through. But I think there must be, like, it's nature nurture. You study psychology, so there's like nature nurture, what you were born with and how a certain environment has made you a person. This is so deep and so philosophical. I love it. But you know, like I have a friend, she was born in South Africa. Her mom is British, her dad is Russian. And I remember we had this conversation where I asked her, by the way, like if I ask you which food do you miss, which one would you say? And she told me, I don't know, like I'm South African, British, Russian, all of those foods. So when it comes to you, if you miss certain things, is it more about things from Sri Lanka or Swiss? Like, I don't know, if you travel elsewhere, do you miss something about Swiss culture?
I do. When I'm in Sri Lanka, of course, I miss this Swiss food. But I have to tell you, I'm a very foodie person. I love food, and I love Asian, especially food, Sri Lankan food, especially from my mom or my grandma or my aunties. Every time when I cook, I try to put some mixes from Sri Lanka, some spices.
I know.
Even it's a spaghetti, even it's something little. I try to mix it up. I love spices. I love Sri Lankan food. Of course, I love also Swiss food. We have a wonderful soup, which is it's a wine soup, and it is really
just made out of wine.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my
really,
God.
yeah,
Can I have it?
it's really beautiful.
I wanna go. Let's stop filming this vlog. Let's go have wine soup.
Yeah.
If you had to tell people what's the main reason to go to Sri Lanka? Is it to take a nice picture from the train, as lots of travelers love to do that, or is it to try food, or maybe to see the nature? What would be like the main thing about Sri Lanka?
Go to Sri Lanka, do these train trips, travel all the time as possible with a train as possible. Go to the northern part, which is beautiful, which is a totally different culture than the southern part. To the northern part, it has a very interesting combination of waterfalls, elephants, all those national parks, and also a big spot for surfers. I'm not into surfing, but many people goes there for kite surfing, which has some really nice spots for good wind, and also for yoga and meditation. And especially we have this culture with Ayurvedic, which we believe in natural oils and doing some intoxicating treatments.
And also you told me you have a very interesting animals belief, right? That animals are like very saint creatures, which I kind of liked what you said about.
Exactly. We believe in the Hinduistic culture that when we die in an animal. We will born in an animal. That's why my mom, when I was scared from some insects or something, she was like, don't say that, otherwise you will born as a fly or some weird thing. Yeah. We even feed all these animals which is on the street, which I have to tell my mom, they probably don't like spicy food. But yeah, I think it is a different way.
They haven't digestion after they eat
exactly. Yeah.
curry rice. Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. That just made me want to go back to Sri Lanka again. And honestly, it's such an amazing country. I really recommend everyone. I have one last thing. It's a game, and it would be like a true or false game. All the dogs, they're like of the same breed. Is that true? Someone noticed, they said like all the dogs in Sri Lanka are the same.
If you say that like that, I really have to think about those dogs. And I remember they are all from the same, yeah, it could be, I think it's true.
People said like they all look the same. I don't know. If you think different, write in comments. Obviously we could be wrong. Restaurants in Sri Lanka are called hotels. So often you see something like vegetarian hotel, and this is not actually a hotel.
Exactly. That's so wrong. Actually, hotel means restaurant. It's not a hotel as we know that we go to sleep. Exactly. Yeah. Hotels are restaurants.
Okay. So if you want to eat well, go to the hotel in Sri Lanka. That's an advice. I don't know about this one, but I have to read it to you. Using vodka flasks as water bottles.
Oh.
Does anyone does it? Vodka flasks as water?
I saw this in the tuk-tuk drivers. They have their vodka bottles, but they put water inside, and then they drink out of their bottle. But they just think from a recycling perspective, because it's hold it, it's keep it, it's warm, and then they can.
So all to save the nature. If you had your bottle of vodka, why throw it away? Just keep it.
Exactly.
Makes sense. That's so funny. Rice and curry 24/7.
Absolutely true.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, got it. So far it's not so far from reality yet. There are some fun facts. Putting salt, pepper and chill on every fruit you eat.
Exactly.
No way.
Yeah.
I've never seen you putting it on fruit.
Yeah, not here. When I would go home to Schaffhausen and my mom said, oh, we have fresh mangoes or pineapples, she will put it that with some chili or some salt.
Really? So it tastes nicer?
It's a different kind of taste. It's like sweet sour somehow. It's really yummy.
Oh my god.
But I like it more in Sri Lanka. When it comes freshly, they put it like that.
Someone who cannot tolerate any spices, for me this is like something crazy to imagine. Dal curry is the king of curries.
For me, it wouldn't be true, because I'm a fan of, there are so many different variations. But many people loves it. For me, it's not.
Okay. False. Something called tambili is a hangover cure. Do you know what tambili is?
Tambili. Tambi means little brother.
Okay, maybe not.
Well, tambili I never heard.
Yeah, I was just reading about something like that. And what about, like, everyone is addicted to the music called Baila?
Baila. Oh,
I know you love music, but I don't know if
I
that's
do
the
like
same.
music.
Maybe it's another type or something. But
It could be because in the northern part we love South Indian music, which comes from Colombo, which is the the Tamil movies. We listen like that. But Baila, I never heard about it. But let's have to check about it.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the last one I had is the traffic is really tough in Sri Lanka. It's like it says traffic from hell.
It is. That's true because they don't have the signal system. They keep a horn all the time, and this horn, which you need really strong ears for that.
Well, but in the end, it's part of the experience. So if you guys are not scared of traffic from hell, I can assure you Sri Lanka is an amazing place. I'm such fond memories about it. So give it a go one day. And thank you, Tharsan, so much
You're
for your
welcome.
time. And this
Thank
was
you.
our quarantine vlog, which I hope went well. Bye-bye.
Bye.